Hey guys, what's going on? It's your favorite product of the post-colonial American Empire. And I mean post-colonial as in post the British having control of what is today the United States, not post-colonial as in that colonialism and imperialism for the United States as a global power has ended, because it hasn't. But today, um, I wanted to rustle some jimmies a little bit, get political, um, and just talk about some reflections on the American Empire. Um, And what got me thinking about this is that my mother recently became a US citizen uh after, 24 years. And um what can I say, guys? I'm so proud of her. Um I I mean, sh- bottom line, she is the hardest working person that I know. Like, she might be the hardest working person in the world. I haven't met anyone that goes so hard on work, whatever it may be, right? Because, I mean, in Guatemala, she was a model, but she also worked in customs, I think, at one point. She was a secretary. Um, she helped run my dad's cleaning supplies factory. Um, and when we when we migrated to the US, unfortunately, she got wrapped up in, so did my dad, but we're not talking about him right now. Um, in the social and economic dynamics of the American empire, what sustains American wealth, which um was honestly because, again, you can't transfer your experience or education across countries usually. Uh my my mom was forced to become working, both my parents, but again, my mom especially was forced to become working class. She worked at restaurants, McDonald's. She eventually, though, settled into, like, caregiving. Um and talking with her throughout the years, and by caregiving I mean, like, working in assisted living facilities, taking care of old people and stuff like that. And by talking with her and going to work with her sometimes throughout the years, throughout these, she's been doing that sort of thing for 23 out of 24 years here. And I started to notice that for whatever reason, like, the immigrant people were never in positions of power. And, like, maybe there was like one or two throughout this entire time that ran a shift or were supervisors or managers. But, typically, quote unquote, white people were usually in those positions, and um African American, other African people usually from the actual, well, I mean, it's not fair to say that African Americans aren't from the African continent, because they are. I just mean that more recent arrivals, because we know how many of them got here, unfortunately. um how typically, like, these places would just, use immigrant labor and pay them like crap, essentially, unfortunately. And, my mom, unlike my dad, because she didn't grow up with privilege, she grew up in a rural place in Chiquimula. Yes, she could pass as white, but like, she couldn't speak English. She had to learn from, the people that she worked with and stuff like that. Uh, like with many Latino migrants, um, and it's interesting that her, like, specific idiolect, like the way she personally speaks English, honestly has a lot of influence from African American and African ways of migrant ways of speaking, just because that's who most of our coworkers always were, from Florida to Maryland to wherever we ended up. It was always like that. And honestly, guys, that was sort of my first, like, I started to really realize, like, this is what happens to us. This is how they create the systems that exploit us. And instead of, as I've said here before, looking at um the billionaire that's doesn't pay any taxes, that is always trying to set workers against each other and stuff like that, of whatever. And I'm not saying that issues like identity and race aren't important, but like, if we're talking about your average person that likes to blame stuff on immigrants, like, this is how they're tricked, guys. And this is how Americans, or the American empire, really has been able to keep its wealth. Or not even just the American empire, any empire, really, guys, let's be honest, to have a just like a steady source of cheap labor, which they can use to focus on other things. In years past, it was actual servitude, and you know um black people, they know what forced migration, be it economic or through other ways, they know exactly what that is like. Uh and you know both blacks and Latinos, gotta be real with you guys, have been that for the white majority of this country for most of history. And um I say that as a like white passing Latino having to see what especially my mom has gone through, the way they have exploited her. Bro, one time one of her bosses, now interestingly in this case, I think they were Korean, but like bro, they didn't pay her any wages literally, or I think they were shortchanging her, and she filed a freaking complaint with the board of labor, and she got a return, guys. But imagine that, man. Like, I just it I'm not gonna say it shocked me, but there are people out here that try to goof on people when they say that race isn't a social construct, when, like, guys, how can Latinos be simultaneously lazy and dirty like they like to claim that we are, or migrants generally, but at the same time, they're out here picking your vegetables, your food, taking care of your parents, which you don't want to take care of yourself, which is just the most selfish, like, Northern Europoid invention ever, bro. Like, cause to be honest, that's not normal in most other societies. Like, you take care of your elders, bro. You keep them in your house. Like, I don't know, man. This is kind of a ramble, but it's like you do realize we are doing all of the work that you guys don't want to do. And we are paid crap wages so that you guys can enjoy the finer things. That's literally how it works, guys. And, you know, they use systems of race. They say, oh, he's quote unquote Spanish, he's Latino, right? And so they say, oh, that's just how it is. That's just, um, how the system works. And it's like, I'm sorry, guys, but what white person do you know actually? And I say this completely with the recognition that it's because, a lot of our families don't have a choice, but what white person do you know that would willingly go out to work in the fields, to pick vegetables, to take care of, again, their own parents, which they end up in a home, right? That's why they have these things, bro. It's capitalism that does that. And I still have yet to study a lot of theory, so I can't really articulate it that well. But from my lived experience, guys, from the experience of my parents and my experience of poverty in the United States, like, this is how the US maintains its power, by taking advantage of us when all we want to do, guys, is, you know, find a better life. In my parents' case, in my mom's case, it was to help with my condition. And by the way, well, of course, Guatemala isn't directly a colony of the United States or anything. It is a client state. And, like, Look up the history of the United Fruit Company and Standard Fruit in Guatemala and other Latin American regions, and you'll see what they did to us and how they extracted wealth from us, which eventually kept us from progressing socially in a lot of ways, including disability acceptance. Like, guys, these things don't come from nowhere. They have a history, they have a reason. Um and honestly, with all the stuff that's going on, I really can't be bothered anymore to keep up this amicable and friendly facade of like, oh, it's okay, whatever. It's not all this and that, man. Come on now. Um, and the funny thing is that like now, ironically, the Latinos that could vote did vote Trump, and now the the leopards are coming for their face, bro. I didn't vote Trump. It was my first election. I didn't vote Trump, guys. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious that I didn't, but like, you know, you got what you asked for. Those the the young men, the young white people, and the young Latino men that voted for him. You got what you asked for, guys. I understand that you guys are frustrated with the system, but like, it's like the Fell for It Again award. Why would you think this time would be different? Why? You know, I'm just continually, I'm not shocked, but I don't even know how to put it into words, and you know, stuff like this is a direct result of American empire, American imperialism. My and my family's and many other families' experiences are exactly that. Obviously, it's not only that. I don't want to oversimplify it, but like, come on, guys. Anyway, rant over. Bye.